Hello and welcome to BonkTable. I'm Mass and this is another Conquest battle report. I'm gonna do this whole thing in ASMR. No, I'm not. I am finally getting away from Rollo Caste. I really enjoyed Rollo Caste and the list. It was a lot of fun, but it has been time to move on. There's finally kind of hitting the weaknesses of the list. And one of the big ones that I didn't really like about it was that it didn't have very good token generation. So I went, talked to some Dweghom players, and they were like, hey, try this. And I'm like, all right. I'm going to be playing into a Wadrhun player who's got a bunch of big bricks and running around with the Apex with a Queen on top, who's going to make it super tanky. And when we hit the Wadrhun players list, I'll talk about that interaction, as I think it's actually pretty good. But let's get into back to magma, and here's the list. Alright, so in back to magma, we have a Tempered Sorcerer Warlord in the School of Magma, riding a Hellbringer Drake, his warbands Fireforge and Hold Ballistae. Hold Ballistae is just an MSU with the Herald of Magma, so that they get Aura of Death. Two, what's not the big thing on here, the big thing on here is that you want to get the Ballistae in a piece of terrain, because then the terrain will count as erupting. And then you can use your magma spell Pyroclast to then arc that damaging spell out of the piece of terrain 5 inches and hit somebody. So depending on what the terrain looks like, you can actually touch people some pretty far away or in some weird angles and such. Then our second warband is another Tempered Sorcerer in Magma, riding another Drake, and another unit of Fireforge. So right now, we are pretty guns focused. We got 2 Fireforge Ballistae and 2 Hellbringer Drakes. That's a pretty good meaty gun line to just unload into people. So what are we going to use defensively or melee offense? Well, we're going to do an Wadrhun List. He's going to be running double Flame Berserks and double Wardens, all MSUs. Wadrhun List, I really like for the spell support. All his spells are scaling, but you don't really care if you're just casting it on MSUs. You want to cast like his Rancor spell, what's the score spell on the lights, so you can start scoring things early to stay up on a point lead. You can cast Dismay, what I believe is the Resolve spell, like the -1 to resolve on enemies. It's really good if whenever he gets into a fight, because you can like Wadrhun List, cast -1 resolve, and then entourage into whatever regiment he's in. This game I threw him into Wardens just because I wanted to kind of hold him back and keep him around. Not have him randomly die, because Flame Berserkers, like, they're really good unit because they're fast and have a bunch of wounds, a bunch of resolve, and some pretty good defense. And like their stat line for a light is pretty phenomenal. The problem is because they're lights and you're kind of running up the table to get into that action and set that line of reinforcement. Your opponent kind of has to focus on them and get rid of them, because if they ever get into your opponent, they're just gonna rip them apart. So there's that. Also, I forgot that they had Aura of Death too, and I didn't do any of that this game. So good on me. You'll see them get into a fight with, I believe, some Warbread, and I just totally forgot about Aura of Death too. It happens. But back to the Wadrhun List. Dismay is the -1. Fear makes a regiment not score, and then Resolve, I believe, is just Inspire and Rally, what's really nice. So he's got a good selection of support spells. Also the ability to score and turn off scoring is really good. I just like him a lot. Priest 6 is a good enough dice to cast. If you can get focused on him, he takes focus really well, because sometimes you want to get more successes on a bigger regiment. But with what he's got, he's doing fine. I already kind of talked about Flame Berserkers. Wardens are basically Flame Berserkers, except they have 1 less resolve, but they're fearless. They also have Cleave 1, so that Cleave 1 damage really allows them to cut through a lot more things. They're medium, so they can score, and they're just a great MSU trader. They'll punch up into heavies, but they'll usually wipe out anything that's like medium or below, while Flame Berserkers will wipe out anything that's light or below, but it'll punch up into mediums, and sometimes every once in a while they'll surprise you and do some damage into some heavies. But overall, the thing about this list that I really like about it is its token generation, because I have a Tempered Sorcerer Warlord. He generates the tokens. He can spend the tokens, defensively or offensively, max of 5 per action. And because you got 2 Magma Wizards, you can just throw out hindering terrain and erupting stuff, so there's like 3 tokens right off the bat, and then you have an Wadrhun List who can just cast a score spell himself. So there's no interaction with your opponent to generate tokens, unlike fire. So in fire, you gotta run the wizard up and cast fireball and hit somebody to get a token. This, you can just get them on the table, run them up, and just have the wizard just like throw random spells out there. You know, drop his hindering terrain, erupting some terrain, do whatever he needs to do, and you're gonna generate tokens. So I really like that. Like I don't have to have my opponent coming to me. So if my opponent's being cagey and doesn't really want to commit to me just yet, I can still generate tokens, still have a stockpile of them. So when my opponent finally commits, I'm in a very good spot to have a bunch of tokens defensively that I can spend. Now, one thing to remember is the tokens is spent within 8 inches of a tempered sorcerer or steel shaper. So the 2 guys on the drakes, they're going to have an 8-inch bubble of spending tokens to keep things alive, while the Argent Kilowog can make you tokens because he's casting spells, but he cannot spend the tokens. But with that, I'm going to slow roll the rules, pause the video at any time, maybe like and subscribe, leave a comment, and let's go to the Wadrhun List. Here's my opponent's Wadrhun List. It's called Chief. He's got a Chieftain under Death. He's got Death's Gaze, what gives him the glorious charge when he's a big block of stuff, but I think you need 4 stands without the character to get a bunch of impact attacks and glorious charge. He's also got Mantle the Devoted, so the regiment he's in is going to be Fanatic. It's obviously going to be these 5 stands of Veterans. He's Stoic, so he's going to auto pass and resolve check. He's got Rapid Displacement for double time, and he's got Long Lineage for his double artifacts. So pretty upgrade heavy. Probably doesn't need Death's Gaze, just because like Veterans are kind of like a big brick unit. They already got like Shock from him because he's the Warlord. They got Flurry from him, and they're base class 3, so they're going to Shock to 4, and then re-rolling 6s on top of that, the Flurry, so they're re-rolling everything. So they're going to do a ton of work. They're in Death, and they have 6 attacks because of the champion. I believe Death gives them Flawless Strike, so 1s are smites, what's not bad at all. Like, this brick, especially in war, is really hard to deal with. It's the 6 wounds. Even without war, 6 wounds is a bit to chew through on all these 5 stands, so, you know, putting shots into them, putting work into them, you kind of have to fight them over time. But they are defense 2 with a shield to 3, and they're evasion 1, so if you got some cleave and AP, you can start cutting through this stuff pretty quick. What else do we got here? He's got Raptor Riders. These are the old Raptor Riders. So if you notice, he's 1970. This game was recorded on Sunday. It is now Monday, July 15th. There's been a Wadrhun update, which kind of changed a bunch of things. Raptor Riders is one of them. The Huntress is free, and the regiment decreased from like 200 points or 190 down to like 180. So Raptor Riders is in a much better spot. There'll probably be a bit of a podcast episode on that at some point when I talk to Cassandra about it, because she's going to be way more excited about this than I am, because I'm not a Wadrhun player. So the Raptor Riders used to be 210, now they're 180. There you go. This is going to be basically using the 210 Raptor Riders. Even like this change in this list, like he's gained 30 extra points, probably move around some stuff, probably get another stand, maybe throw some, like he's kind of upgraded everything, so it's kind of hard to find more points. I'd say you'd have to drop some stuff and get another stand with those 30 points, but it's there for people in the future for building. Next war bands, we got a Predator. He's under war, he's got the Dream Catcher, what I believe gives him, might be the Tenacious slot shot draw event. I think it's like Wind's Children what does that, and it's from the Dreamcatcher. He's got Voice of Conquest, so he makes his regiment Conquest, Wave the Hunt, Animalistic, or Focus. Man, I don't forget what that does. I can find that out. Here we go. They gain Sure Shock, so they ignore Obscuring Terrain. And then he's Marksman, so that's why I was getting to the Barrage 5. He's 18 AP, 1 Deadly Shot. The Fiend Hunter, forward force, so he's going to be having Flank. Sweet. He's going to be in the unit of Hunters. I thought he was going to be in the unit of Slingers, but my opponent put him in the unit of Hunters. I was like, okay. Little bit of a shorter range at 14 compared to the Slingers 18. Getting rid of Obscuring Terrain for Slingers is also pretty good, just because they can shoot from further away and they want to hit with more resolve. I'm not exactly sure why my opponent put them in Hunters, to be honest. I feel like Slingers would have been the better bet, even with all the upgrades. But like, Hunter's getting the +3 March from Conquest, you know, getting them up there. Maybe he prefers them with the Armor Pierce and Deadly Shot, so that they're all kind of the same damage output, but they're at different volleys, because 3 and 2. While the Slingers don't have any Armor Pierce and Deadly. So, there we go. Both Hunters and Slingers have Standard Bearer and Flip Mapper. Probably don't need a Standard Bearer on the ranged regiments, because they kind of just run up into their spot and then just huck. They're not really like looking for that reroll. That 1 extra inch isn't super, like, I'm not going to say valuable, but it's not necessary as much for a melee regiment compared to a ranged regiment, because you're already like March 6, so you're kind of run up the table 12 inches first turn, and then you can just like walk 6 and shoot. So, and then once you get in position, you're just going to take aim and shoot. So you got a lot going on for you just being March 6. So after your first march, like, unless you're starting to double march, the Standard Bearer isn't coming up after, like, probably the first turn, or if you've won a flank. So it's kind of, I feel like it's a bit of wasted points, because I think there's like 10 or 15 point banners. I remember Wadrhun banners being very expensive. I think these are like 15 points for some reason. So there we go. Okay, so Matriarch Queen is Death, Beads of Death, Stoic, and Apex Master. So Beads of Death give Tenacious, Stoic gives Indomitable, so you're going to be passing 1 defense roll, and you're going to be passing 1 resolve. So that's 3 damage you're preventing right off the bat. Really good. On top of that, she has To the Last Breath, so whenever you draw her card, she's going to heal 4 wounds. Let's just check that. I believe it's 4 just off the top of my head. Where is it? Come on. It's in here. There we go. Yeah, 4 wounds. It's pretty good. And she's riding the Apex Predator. So when you Pyroclast an Apex Predator, they're going to be rolling defense 2. Let's say they pass 2 of them, because they rolled good. Then they are going to Tenacious off 1. So they've taken 1 wound. And then they're going to Stoic the Resolve. So they've taken 1 wound. And then they're going to heal 4. So this allows the Apex to be really tanky. It can still die if you put a lot of hits into it, like a lot of cleave 1s or something into it. That can just like blow through all the Tenacious and the Stoic and the healing, and kind of get it over the, like, before the Queen activates, or if you kind of like put in a bunch of chip damage and then hit it before the Queen activates to heal it, you can kind of blow it up. But it really helps it survive against chip damage. What is one of the issues with monsters? They're very susceptible to chip damage because they're so big. A lot of things can see them. A lot of ranged regiments can just shoot upwards and shoot the thing and, you know, put on like 3 to 4 wounds. And then, you know, next turn they put on 3 to 4 wounds. Okay, well that's 8. Well, now you have 7 left. So if a melee regiment hits you, they can probably do the 7 wounds out of Clash and Resolve, which can just kill you. So that's not very good. So this interaction keeps it alive from chip damage, which now forces a heavy hitter to come in and kill the Apex. I'm not going to say limits your opponent's options and choices, but the Apex now understands what's going to be going up against, and if your opponent doesn't understand that, the Apex can have a better time getting into like chewy range regiments who are going to be trying to shoot at it, and the Apex will love killing those things, and so on. So it makes the Apex live against chip, what's really nice for the Apex. Then we got a big block of Blooded, Standard Bearer and Champion, and then an MSU Warbred. Overall, not a bad list. Some of the issues is that it only has 4 scoring regiments, and they're big bricks. Well, 2 of them are big bricks. Like the Veterans and the Blooded are both 5 stands, so those are both big bricks. So they're going to get on zones and want to fight on zones, but want to score those zones. So once they're on a zone, the list doesn't have anything to relieve them off of the zone. Like, they don't have a really good score cascade of, like, this MSU can come up behind your big brick and score it, but frees up your big brick to move forward. Like, their big bricks are stuck in that zone, and I'm playing a Dweghom gun line with some melee, so I can just sit there and just unload into them, and they can't really come off the zone and fight me, because now they're not scoring, but they don't have enough healing and durability to stay around as I start picking off stands turn after turn, so eventually I'm just going to win that fight. Warbred can kind of relieve stuff, but it still kind of wants to get in there because of its March 6. Like, they're pretty quick because of March 6, and then the Apex wants to be kind of a third line thing that shoots up and just takes over stuff and kills things after, like, the lines have clashed, so it's more of a support beast. You can use the Apex to score, but this list has 3 lights with the Raptors, Slingers, and Hunters. None of those things score even though they're good, so I would kind of say maybe drop Raptor Riders, get an MSU of Blooded, replace Blooded or Hunters with Blooded so they can score, and then keep the Slingers, or maybe push the Slingers out to 4 or 5 stands with a Predator and then have an MSU of Blooded, just so that the scoring cascade works better. So you can just have the MSUs in the back, scoring zones, creating chant markers, and then your big bricks of like these veterans, this big brick of Blooded, the Apex, Warbred, and Slingers can all get work, and they have tokens to chant off of, because you have those regiments in the back sitting around scoring, and also generating new tokens. Alright, let's slow roll the rules, and then we'll get on to the game. Pause the video at any time to read a rule that I didn't talk about. How this works. Or build the list yourself. I don't know. You're an adult. Alright, let's go to the game. Here's the scenario we're playing today. We're playing melee. We got 2 6-inch zones that are worth 2 points, and 2 9-inch zones that are worth 3 points. You gain 2 extra points if you are seizing 2 or more zones, and then you get 2 points for the Warlord, you get 2 points for every enemy character, and you get 2 points for every regiment. So this is a kill point scenario. I tend to find in kill point scenarios that the killing of regiments is just bonus points. Taking over and holding 2 to 3 scenario objectives is the better goal here. If you kind of take this, you take over, half of the table, or 2/3. This would be considered 2/3. So you take over 2/3, and this is 2/3, but you take over that half and you lock it down and score it, and then you go in and you fight over the other 6-inch, and you take that. You now have 2/3, and at that point your opponent can't beat you for scoring because you're just getting 10 points a turn, while the 2, like the 6 and the 9, are getting you 7 points. Yeah, so it's 7 points. So if you're getting 7 points a turn, that's like killing 3 regiments. And a lot of lists only have between usually 10 and 12 cards. And if you score 3 times, you already have killed off, like you've scored 9 cards worth of stuff. And usually people don't lose 3 regiments a turn. And also you're not going to be scoring 3 regiments a turn. Sometimes you fight it out and you severely cripple regiments, but don't score them. So in this scenario, you really want to focus on the objectives. I myself like to go for my close zone and then my left side. That's just my preference because it's closer to me, and I can secure and lock that down. And then I make a push for the opponent's close zone and take over that. And then once I have those 3 objectives, I just don't really care anymore. My opponent's never going to outscore me. We can battle it out for the rest of the game, but once you kind of score that about 2 to 3 times, your opponent really can't catch up even if they're killing your regiments, and you just go from there. Let's go to the table. Here's the table we're playing on today. We got a forest here, so that's going to be obscuring hindering. We got another forest over here, one more obscuring hindering. We got size 2 elevation, so it's going to plop you up 2 size levels. Water, that doesn't really come up, but we do have obstructions. We're just going to go OB. So those are, I believe they're size 3, and we can't draw a line of sight, and we can't move through them. So overall, not bad. Things I kind of had to be worried about was this forest over here. I kind of used it more defensively because my opponent has 2 shooting regiments, especially Slingers on that resolve. I don't really want to deal with them, so getting in the woods without the sure shot, because the Predators and the Hunters, cuts the Slingers' attacks in half. It's really nice. My opponent is looking for this forest to kind of sure up and not get shot as much. But besides that, I'll just do it in black. These 2 buildings kind of split the table a little bit, but not super crazy. That's A-okay. That's kind of it. Like the hills, they're a little farther out, but they didn't really contribute. The water, you'll see why the water didn't matter at all as the game goes on. But it was mostly like the sides was kind of the interesting fight about this one. So let's go to turn 1. Here's turn 1. I get all my lights. I deploy my ballistas right up the middle, hoping to kind of use the building over here to protect the flank and then threat project. Past that, over there and over there to threaten the middle and then my opponent's right zone. I got some Flame Berserkers looking to, we'll do it in red, run up and get into this zone, and then, move either that way or that way. And then lastly, we have another unit of Flame Berserks that are running up the table to look to get into the woods and get into that zone over on the left there to score it out. My opponent counters with slingers sitting over here, so I gotta be wary about them, but I'm like, okay, well, I can get into the woods and I'll probably be safe. And then he throws Raptor Riders over here, and I'm like, okay, sure, you can run into that zone. Like, seeing these Raptor Riders here, I'm thinking my opponent's just gonna go a long bomb and, like, try and get into my flank here, which is not a bad plan, but my opponent has to wait a while to see where the rest of my regiments go, because I have a bunch of Fireforge and Wardens who are going to be sitting around for a while, who can just drop over here on the right side and protect this flank if that really becomes a problem. But that's turn 1, initial deployment. I'm already looking at the scenario. My opponent's split deployed, and I'm kind of like, where are you going? So let's go to turn 2. Here's turn 2. I get both my Hellbringer Drakes with their Sorcerers on top. Love it. My opponent gets Warbred and their Veterans. My opponent had the auto in with, forward force for the flank on his, what the heck are they called? I am totally botching this one. On his Hunters with his Predator. He decided to just kind of leave them in reinforcement. I believe he also decides to leave the Blooded in reinforcement, and I'm like, okay, sure, you can hang out back there. I'm just gonna, set up my Dweghom Castle, and we kind of hit that point here. Early moves, I just kind of get like the Ballistae up. I get the Flame Berserks up the table, as you can see right here. I didn't get my Warden with my scoring character, but I still got the Flame Berserks up. I didn't really want to get super shot up just yet, but my opponent kind of walks in with the Slingers and pops a shot into them, does a bunch of damage. I'm like, that kind of sucks, but whatever. One of my last cards is this Flame Berserker unit, which just sits into the woods there. So now they're safe, that's fine. They're looking to get into the Slingers for next turn. He's got the Warbred over there, but if I can get into the Slingers first, I can probably wipe them out, and then I can deal with the Warbred. I'm not too worried, and then I can bring in something else, like Wardens, to score that zone, or Fireforge. The Dweghom reinforcement line mechanic, you can just kind of, like, shoot up the table. I'll do it in orange. Like, you can just shoot up the table depending on how far forward stuff is, so it's really funny when you get something quick up the table and just start side deploying and getting stuff, and you'll see that on turn 3. These Raptor Riders, they rock up, they shoot me and then like reform. I walk up. These Ballistae I think walk up, and then the both the Drakes kind of wander up the table. This Drake drops some hindering terrain. This Drake Pyroclast out of it into them, or the Ballistae shoot, either or, and then I drop some more hindering terrain. I think I just drop it like over here. Doesn't really matter. And from there, there's a couple wounds on those those Raptors. So I'm like, okay, sweet. Starting to work on them. Nothing too crazy. My opponent's got his Vets. They're looking to get into that zone. Not a bad play. I'm A-okay with that because I got nothing over there. I'm already making my play on the left side of the board in this area in black. So I'm fine with one of his 4 scoring stands just sits in that zone, and I'll just deal with it later. Because I'm already putting force pressure on his... let's see here. We'll do it in green. On this zone, and I'm going to be controlling this zone, and I'm hopefully going to be controlling that zone. So I'm kind of fine with that. No one scores. Let's go to turn 3. Here's turn 3. I get one of my Wardens and my character, and the rest of my stuff doesn't come on. Not the end of the world. The rest of my opponent's army comes on. And so we kind of start going back and forth. He wins the roll-off. Warbred, March charge me, get in. I believe they take some impact attacks on the Flame Berserks. Flame Berserks, clash back, kill off 2 Warbred. They're broken. Slingers go. They unload into the Flame Berserks. I believe they were in their effective range. And even with half shots from Obscuring, I take a bunch of damage and we lose 2 stands. And I'm broken. I'm like, oh, that's not very good. I move these Flame Berserks up. These Ballistae right here shoot at the Raptor Riders, do a bunch of work. This Hellbringer Drake shoots at the Raptor Riders, do a bunch of work. You can see the hindering terrain there, so I drop some hindering. This Drake wanders up and just pops a shot, kills a stand over there of Slingers. I'm happy. And what else do we got? I believe I Pyroclast out of this hindering terrain piece into the Raptors as well, so that's why I will circle them in orange. They're over here with 1 stand. They activate and move over there. I'm like, okay, cool. His veterans run up and like double time wheel this way. So he's trying to protect his flank, score that zone. That's really good on him. He's going to get 3 points for that. Awesome. His Blooded making a beeline for this, but this is all he has on the table. And those Blooded are basically left all by their lonesome and in front of a gun line. So after I'm done kind of shooting stuff, and as he moves up to score that zone, I'm just going to wail into him. I side deploy the Wardens so that I can get on the zone later and, swing in and deal with that Apex. My opponent deploys his Apex and runs up here and tries to heal his Warbread, but his Warbread's broken, so he can't heal. Then I shoot the Slingers, so he didn't get to heal the Slingers because his Apex is already gone. Next, the Predator and Hunters walk on, as you can see right over here. They pop some shots into the Wardens, do 4 wounds. I'm like, okay, well, that kind of sucks, but, hopefully I can get into those Hunters, kill off that one Warbread next turn, swing the Wardens around, hit those Slingers, do a ton of work, cast a score spell on that one unit of Flame Berserks. I cast the Inspire and Unbreak Themselves spell, so the Flame Berserks rallied, and I'm just generating tokens. Currently, I got nothing to spend tokens on because my opponent, basically after this, I'll circle it in orange, really never engages with the thing that generates tokens, or spends the tokens, and I'm like, alright, I guess I control the middle, and now I have to fight off each side. So that's kind of where this game is at this point. So let's see turn 4 and see how I do it. Here's turn 4. So things that happen. I forgot to do Aura of Death into these Warbread basically every turn. At one point, Warbread rally, they attack back. I take like 2 wounds. Flame Berserkers go. They attack back. Warbread takes a bunch of wounds. I think the Queen heals them. And I'm like, or the Warbread, so, they go back down to 0, and then they, I put some wounds on. I'm like, okay, cool. This Hellbringer Drake shoots and pops the Slingers. They're dead. Sweet, don't have to deal with that. And I'm just kind of looking at chipping away at stuff right now. Reduce things, get rid of stuff. Because, like, if my opponent has less and less activations, especially as with Wadrhun, they have less chanting. What means I'm just going to be ahead. So killing off Wadrhun support regiments is really good in that aspect. I deploy these Fireforge on the side here. And I thought about shooting this Warbread. And I probably could/should have. But he was in the terrain and I didn't really want half shots. Especially on Volley 2. So I decided to shoot the Apex. My Wardens got shot by Hunters. And then charged the Hunters, because they cast the rally spell on themselves from the Argent Killua, kill off a stand, and then as you can see the Apex goes in their back and finish them off. Okay, not great, not the end of the world. But because my Apex is on that zone, they're scoring that. Not great. Veterans on the zone, they're scoring that. Blooded run up and score that. Blooded, I believe, gets shot by Ballistae, and then Hellbringer shoots them. I believe I do something. Oh, so this guy, this wizard, I'm going to circle him in orange. He casts Hindering Terrain, fails. Then he casts Eruption. So both our stands take damage, but we both made our saves. And then I believe this wizard that I'll circle in yellow, I think he Pyroclasts punched somebody. It might be like the warden or something. Like, it wasn't... But he, like, made a bunch of saves and was like, oh, okay, so Warbread didn't die. That was it. But this is actually a pretty good turn for my opponent. Oh, before I forget. Decide to deploy these Fireforge. My opponent moved his Raptor Rider, like, over here. It's just the one stand. I just walk on with a Fireforge and just shoot in the face and kill it. But now my opponent's in a really bad spot. I'll just do this in purple because he's got Fireforge in the side, he's got Hellbringer Drake, and he's got Ballista coming for him. So there's a ton of work coming for him. But he does score 3 zones. To me, it's not the end of the world because he doesn't really have a middle. His veterans are stuck between a Hellbringer Drake and a Fireforge. His blooded are stuck. If they want to charge my Flame Berserks who have moved up here, he's got to come off the zone. I keep, getting within auto charge range because I don't really have a reason to just march charge him. I just want to auto in and do a bunch of damage. But I have a ton of guns, so I can just soften them up before I even commit. Veterans are in a really bad spot. Like, a lot of things here are just kind of left isolated, and I can just freely pick them off as I go. The only real thing I'm kind of concerned about is, in this lighter purple, is kind of this Apex and how I'm going to deal with that, how I'm going to lock down the left zone. But on the right side, he's got 2 big scoring regiments, but I just have a bunch of guns, and I have no reason to commit to a zone just yet until I wipe out his stuff with my guns. So that's turn 4. Let's go to turn 5. Here's turn 5. Things that go on. Yeah, Fireforge. Shoot the veterans. Kill off a stand or 2. He's not completely in the woods, so I don't have to care about obscuring. Ballista. Shoot veterans. Hellbringer Drake. Shoot veterans. Pyroclast. Into the veterans. So tons of work coming out of that. Into those veterans. Opponent isn't super excited about that. He's broken and he's lost 3 stands. He tried to go for the charge from the vets into my Fireforge, but he rolled like a 2 and he needed like a 3 or 4 and didn't get it. So I'm like, yay! Don't have to deal with that. So they're broken there, so they're not scoring. He is scoring this. He just backs off on his blooded because I keep kind of wandering up to be within range, but he's just like, oh, I don't want to fight that. Flame Berserks, once again, get within 7 inches because I'm just going to auto in, and if he tries to come off to fight me, he's off the zone. He's not scoring points, and I'm just going to, kill these 2 stands at my leisure at this point. But one side's not scoring. That's really good for me. His Apex was over here. Reforms and charges into the flank of the Fireforge. Does like 4 wounds. Fireforge, reform, and fight back. Do a couple wounds. The Wardens I deployed last turn over here that I didn't really talk about. They just run up the table. The Flame Berserk that was sitting where this red box is kills off his Warbread. Is sitting, where this blue box is. And then this purple box, Hunters just move up and then just shoot into the... Ooh, wrong target. Into that Flame Berserker, killing him. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. The Hellbringer Drake... You do something. Hunters get healed by the Queen, but not all the way. I'm not sure if this Hellbringer Drake had any shots. He might have, moved up and shot here. I'm pretty sure he did and did a couple wounds, but then the Queen healed them. So, not too crazy. But I am scoring 7 points here, while my opponent scores 2. So, catching up on store, killing off his regiments, securing stuff, and doing really well. So let's go to turn 6 and see how the rest of this develops. Here's turn 6. Good things that happen. Hunters, dead. So I believe the Hunters get to go first. They shoot into the Wardens, do a bunch of wounds. I think they kill off a stand. Wardens countercharge, do a bunch of damage, leave them on 1 stand, and then the Hellbringer Drake just kind of walks up and shoots over everybody into the Hunters and wipes them out. So there's that. I am scoring this, and I'm scoring this, so really good here. Apex continues the battle into the Fireforge. Fireforge are fighting back, but now there's nothing going into the Apex, so the Queen is just healing up the Apex. There's just nothing around. but I'm a-okay with that. Apex is on the zone, I'm really happy. Veterans get the charge into the Fireforge, deal a bunch of damage and wipe out the Fireforge, so they're sad and dead, but they're not on that zone, so I'm a-okay with that. And also they got like 8 wounds left, so I'm also a-okay with that. That allows me to have the Ballista, the Hellbringer Drake, the magic attacks. I'll do it in orange. You can see the hindering over here. Go into this blooded unit, what basically kills off a ton of stands. My opponent then at that point rallies and backs up more. He's only got 1 stand, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to get the Flame Berserks into there. And now there's 1 stand in the zone. I'm contesting it. And if he comes up to fight the Flame Berserks, he's going to get shot. And if he backs off, he's not scoring it. And I can, get my Hellbringer Drake in there and score it. So at this point, my opponent's not scoring anything. I got 7, so now I'm up on points. And I'm just looking to kind of wipe out the last little bit of stuff he has. The Apex is going to be really tough because I only got Wardens over there. And I'm trying to get the left side Hellbringer Drake Warlord to kind of, get some shots into that Apex, but the right side is getting cleaned up really nicely, and I can, take over zones at my leisure. So let's go to turn 7. I believe it'll be 7. So here's turn 7. Things that go well. His blooded charge of my Flame Berserks kill off a stand. That's a-okay. Flame Berserks counterattack, kill off his stuff. He then has his veterans move on to the zone. I'm like, okay. Ballista wheel as far as they can. I do a proxy base right here for where the Hellbringer Drake is. I throw down a proxy base, kind of, measure out where I need to go, because the Hellbringer Drake's going to run 14 to get on that zone and score it. But I can't have the Ballista do too hard of a wheel, because they need to wheel, and then they're going to put 2 stands worth of shots into this, soften them up some more. My opponent gets his his Apex onto the zone to score that for him. And he's out of line of sight of my Wardens, so my Wardens just perform a reform and a march up, so that they're within 6 inches, so that he can't really escape me. My Warlord Hellbringer Drake just reforms and just pops some caps. It's half shots because it's going through the woods, but he does, in orange, erupting the woods, and then just drops a Pyroclast into the Apex. And then I think the other Warlord, or the other Wizard, drops Pyroclast into the Apex. So, doing good there. Engendering tokens. Scoring zones. So, we score 8 points, while my opponent scores 10 points. So, he's trying to take it back, but I have the shooting to kind of get rid of those veterans on the right side. I'm not super worried about it, because I think he's got 4 wounds on that, or he's taken 4 wounds on that injured stand, and he's got 6 left, so, we'll do some good work in the next couple turns and wipe them out, and then I can run over there and score it. And we got Wardens set up to go get that Apex, and we got a Hellbringer, and we can just, erupting the terrain, and then, shoot Pyroclast into it to get rid of it. So let's go to turn 8. Here's turn 8. Things that go first. Wardens, charge into the side of the Apex, do a bunch of damage. Apex heals, because that's what it does. It auto-passes the combat reform, and then just, shimmies back to stay out of range of my Hellbringer Drake. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I really like that. So, doing what else you can do, I move up the Hellbringer Drake, get back within range, shoot a bunch of shots. They're halved because of the forest. I'll just circle that in green here. Put some wounds on, and then, here I am in orange, dropping the hindering terrain. Double Pyroclast. Stoic and Tenacious is really kicking in hard here, reducing a lot of that damage because it's only 4 hits. So my opponent, will save 1 or 2 on the 2s, and then Tenacious off 1, and then Stoic off the resolve. So they're really only taking 1 to 2 damage every time one of these hit him. So it's not very good damage going in, but I gotta kind of, keep up the damage because I can't lay off because it'll heal it off. But I am doing enough to slowly override it, so I'm trying to hopefully kill off the Apex before it can heal up and wipe out some more stuff and score it. But my opponent does score that zone. On the right side, Hellbringer Drake lays into veterans, kills off a stand, and then Ballista lay into veterans, kill off the other stand, and then the character's just there, so he just runs away, and that clears all that. And I score both these zones. So my opponent scores 3, and I scored 8. And he's just got an Apex left. These Flame Berserkers just spin around and start running this way. Because why not? I don't know if my opponent's going to try and like fight my Warlord at some point, so I'm just like, well, what if we just get a stand of Flame Berserks running around? He can help out if need be. And that's really turn 8. You know, just kind of cleaning up everything, trying to maximize score, trying to like keep my opponent from scoring so I can win the game. I've killed off almost all my opponent's stuff and just scored the Warlord, so I'm probably in a really good spot on cards. We kind of just count the cards at the end. What's fine. But, you know, I got probably 2 turns left, and I just have an Apex who's like taken 11 wounds out of his 15, so hopefully we're just going to finish this guy off. So let's go see turn 9 and see how that goes. Here's turn 9. I believe my opponent wins the roll-off, kills the Wardens. He Inspire Clashes to make sure that they're dead. Shoot the Apex, do a bunch of damage. Opponent heals the Apex. I then Erupting Ground, Pyroclast, and then second Pyroclast kills the Apex. And finally, this Hellbringer Drake just runs into that zone. So I score 3, 5, plus 7. And that's turn 9, and that's the game. So, table my opponent. Got all the zones. Did pretty well. I didn't spend a single ticket this game because my opponent never engaged my center. So let's go check out the end score, and then we'll talk about the game. Here's the end score. My opponent has 36. Because he killed 6 of my cards, which gives him an extra 12 points. I have 56, because I killed all his cards and Warlord, and then scored a bunch, and we ended the game on turn 9. So, let's talk about it. I think my opponent should have correlated his forces more. He spread out too much, and he did a split deploy. And because I had control of the center, and because of how magma works, where you can kind of bounce shots, or if like erupting terrain and then bounce shots, I could affect either side of the table pretty efficiently with my magic, and not have to worry about like making sure that the Drake was, you know, forward facing in line of sight, because you can just target something within 5 inches of the erupting piece of terrain. And I was just dropping erupting terrain, either making it myself or casting it on existing things. And I could contribute that magic while generating tickets, which was really fantastic. The split deploy didn't really help my opponent there. I think he kind of got caught on his own list a little bit because he didn't have things to free up scoring on his bigger bricks. Like his Blood and Veterans didn't really contribute. They just kind of sat on zones, but there was never a fight for those zones. Like there was never a melee clash. It was just sit there and get shot at. What's not a really great place to be unless you're at the end of the game and you're just trying to like score out a couple more turns, and your opponent can't approach you and do that fight because they just got a range regiment, while I had plenty of time with my range regiments to just kind of unload into stuff at my leisure and kill his regiments. On the left side, it was a bit more of a game because I wasn't using any of my tickets because my wizards were not within 8 inches of the regiments being affected. I forgot Aura of Death on the Flame Berserks. Probably would have helped me on that one Warbread a little sooner, because they would have activated, took Aura of Death 2, and maybe popped it, because I think it was at like 4 wounds at one point, and then, you know, rallied and got healed by the Queen, and I was like, oh, I could have, you know, killed this thing if it activated. Maybe rolled poorly, took the 2 Aura of Deaths, and then been dead. But that's okay, you know, sometimes you just forget about stuff. Not the end of the world. Us both side deploying each other off of the reinforcement line was kind of funny. Like, I popped in with Wardens to, you know, get right up into the battle, and my opponent's like, oh, you're really fast. I'm like, nah, I'm just using the reinforcement line. Like, this is kind of just what you do to support a side with Dweghom. You kind of have to use the reinforcement line. Because there's no speed tricks, there's no fluid, there's no double time, there's no vanguard. You kind of have to make do with what you got, and something everyone has is the reinforcement line, so coming off the side like that. On the right side, dropping those Fireforge to kind of knock off the Raptors so that he couldn't do anything else, and also not use them as a token generator was kind of nice. And then threatening the veterans so that he was stuck between both the Hellburner Drake shooting and the Ballista shooting and the Fireforge shooting, and he kind of didn't really have a place to go. Really sucks, because either way he positions, I'm getting around a shield on one of those two flanks, and he wasn't in the woods all the way, so if I could, you know, get a beat on something that was sticking out or on the entire regiment, it would have been good. And I did so and just kind of lit up his stuff. It was really nice. And he eventually comes off the zone to kill the Fireforge, which is great for him, but also great for me because now he's not scoring that zone, and that's what I want. And now I can just go focus on other things, because I think when he left that zone, I went and shot up Blooded and really reduced him down to one stand at that point. So he wasn't in a really good spot there, even if he was backing up. I just had the guns where I'm just going to keep walking and shooting you until I get rid of you, and then I'm going to take that zone. But yeah, the left side was much better. The Apex with the Queen and the Stoic and Tenacious is just does not take chip damage. It, you know, healing 4 wounds and then reducing, especially casting by like a minimum of 3 is really good to just knock off chip damage. And the Dweghom List is a lot of chip damage. That's kind of how it does its work. It usually just picks a target, unloads into it, and takes that target. And then you kind of have to run the rest of your army up. But I think the big problem was the split deployment between the two far end zones, and just not a correlation of forces that kind of take over the right side of the board, what I was weakest on, and assert themselves and then kind of try and push into me or trying to flank around would have been probably a better to play. So with that, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. You know, BonkTable Discord in the description below if you want to join that and talk to myself or others more, as well as Cassandra has a Twitter. So hope you all have a great day. Bye.